Commissioner Rollins?
Here.
Commissioner Vogelsang? Here. Commissioner Wren? You're muted, Erin. Commissioner Wren?
Thank you, Joanne. Commissioners, are there any changes to the agenda? Okay, move right into public requests. Brianne, do you have any to be read into the record?
I do not. I do not have any for the record.
Are there any calls coming in?
I'm looking to see if anybody raises their hand.
That's how you do it.
I see nobody.
That is the first.
I have, hold on. Harold, are you on? Do you want to speak?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Yeah, I wanted to say, first of all,
Name and address, please.
what?
Name
Name
and
and address, please.
Oh, my name is Harold Chappie, 6200 Northwest Second Avenue, president of Keep Out from Boca.
Thank you.
I want to mention a couple of things, which I had mentioned before. You start the meetings off in this agenda, and then you ask for comments from the different members, and then you start another dialogue discussing those items. Like last week, you discussed about the jogging track and the walking trails. And 15 years ago at Boca Tiki here, and it still happens. People do walk on the golf course early in the morning before the golfers come. We used to have Lit University come, and their cross-country team used to come. And there was no objections. They all came, and they all did what they had to do before the golfers came, or the guys with the mowing equipment came. And it was all worked out great. Everything's about finding and coordination. I don't think you have to spend a fortune to bring a walking trail or a jogging trail completely around the golf course. I don't know that I lost you because my screen went blank.
we hear you.
Refer you.
Okay, I have no picture at all, so. Yeah, and I have to use Barbara's phone because what happens is if I get a phone call on my phone, we lose you. It shuts you off. But anyway, I thought that maybe if you're gonna continue doing this, that maybe like we did once before, we asked basically like during or even after before you make a decision, that we can make a comment, to what you were going to discuss, which was brought up extemporaneously.
So you're asking if after our reports and discussions, if we would revisit public requests. I think that's a reasonable request.
Yeah, I mean, if you started like with the Xeriscape, and you did the landscape, and the jogging trails, and there's a lot of information that happened here 15 years ago that maybe you people are not aware of. That did happen, and there was no problems. Everybody worked together. It was like a family. It had to be like maybe 15, 20 people walking every morning. My wife was one of them, with a couple of 80 and 90-year-old women. But then the trail got so bad, the tracks over there, they couldn't walk anymore.
Okay, so you're saying that using the cart pass is an option rather than, before the golf.
Yeah, I asked Wayne for a copy of the new layout. He still hasn't sent it to me. And I wanted to see how he could, and I also asked him if we could work something out where basically the people could walk early in the morning. He said there was no problem with that. Everything would be coordination. But it's just a matter of putting the missing links together. The missing trails, I guess, or where the golf course ride. But I don't think there's any really tremendous amount of money to be spent on.
Okay, good.
And the neighbors would love it. I mean, like I said, they still walk, but they walk on the sidewalk, which is treacherous. They tried to ride their bikes. I asked the city once to see if they could get appropriations for a bike lane. And they basically very rudely told me to sue you people, which isn't your job. So, before somebody gets killed on Second Avenue, because a lot of people ride their bikes. It's not just now, all the time. All right, that's all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks. Brianne, is there anyone else?
I don't see anybody right now. If anybody's on the phone and they want to speak a public comment, you can press *9 to show us that you're interested in speaking, and we'll bring you in here. Let me just scroll down and make sure. I don't see any hands raised, Chair.
Okay, commissioners, at virtual meeting that was held on June 10th. It's on page 3 of your agenda packet. Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
Okay, do I hear a second? Okay. Is there any discussion, any questions, any revisions? Okay, hearing none, Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright. You're muted, Aaron. Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Thank you, motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's move on to our regular business. The first is the Ocean Strand discussion found on page 10 of your agenda packet. Brianne, would you like to start off?
Sure. Commissioners, at our last meeting on Wednesday of last week, we were tasked with writing an RFP to get Ocean Strand opened up as a pedestrian park with some very basic elements. So on page 10 is a copy of that RFP for design build for Ocean Strand with the budget amount of $75,000. I did send out some revisions today. Earlier this afternoon, I sent out some revisions. Maybe it was this morning. Just some of those highlights of those changes that we made were to the time of work. We've talked to neighbors. I talked to Dave Petrozelli. I also talked to some of the residents at Boca Towers, and they prefer that the work not start until 8 a.m. So I figured that was an amenable change, and I went ahead and edited that, if you guys are good with that. And the other items that we changed were the insurance, which is on the first page of the RFP, which in your books is page 10. We adjusted those amounts after speaking with our insurance guru on board. He made some suggestions, so we updated those. And also the hold harmless in the back, we added that subcontractors would hold the district, would indemnify the district, and also would name us as additionally insured on their policies. Those are the only changes that were made in the revisions that you got this afternoon. And now I welcome any of your feedback or comments.
I'm glad you made that change with the time frame, because I just thought workers coming in at 7 a.m. I do have a question that will come down the road, I'm sure. Since we were talking about doing the beautification over on 2nd Avenue in Clintmore at the golf course, and we are going to have to remove some vegetation at Ocean Strand, I'm just wondering if it would be cost effective to move some of those trees from Ocean Strand over to the golf course. It may be prohibitive, I don't know. I haven't.
We can look into that.
Commissioners, yeah. Mr. Rollins?
Yes, you know, looking through the RFP and the amount of detail that's required, I'm thinking that 75,000 may not be a high enough number to attract, you know, interested parties for the amount of work that's involved. And especially note that next year we only have 100,000 there for maintenance, which tells me we should be putting more up front to get it started. If 100,000 is going to be what's cost to maintain it, it's going to cost us at least that much, possibly more, to bring it up to the condition that we want. I just would like the board to consider we could possibly adjust our budget to $100,000, and unless someone considers that unreasonable amount, it just seems like the amount of work that is involved with this RFP that we may attract more interest at a higher dollar amount to indicate more work to be done. Just my thoughts.
Steve?
Actually, I wasn't going to say anything, just put my phone down because that came on. But since you asked, my only concern with bumping the cap up is if this is indeed a $75,000 job and we make it 100,000, it will be 100,000 regardless of whether it's 75 or not. I don't have any issue with your line of reasoning, Bob, that we want to attract as many candidates as possible.
bump up, 400,000 bump too.
Well, we have had interest from the community that, some of the, some groups might want to participate and reduce the amount of labor costs and what have you. Nothing formal, but there has been some interest and some offers. Brianne, would you like to weigh in on who's?
Oh, I think Erin could probably speak to it because she organized the meeting on Friday with Jessica Gray from Boca Save Our Beaches. They're interested in participating in this with volunteers. And I also heard from some of the residents of Boca Towers that in the past some Rotary groups were interested in helping volunteer as well. So there is nothing formal, but I think that there is some interest in community organizations to participate, which we included in this RFP.
Madam Chairman, I actually was part of the Rotary group that did some cleanup there for the community development on the property, with down trees. And the city did come in and haul off debris, but I have to tell you, having recent experience with the implementation in Hobart, I can tell you probably a good idea that the volunteers are not doing that, sign an indemnity agreement, because with the Rotary Club, I was running a chainsaw, there's folks with axes and CrossFit saws, and I can only imagine the damage one can do to themselves or another in this volunteer effort. I'm sure it can be managed properly, but the Rotary Club did, we were there on our own without any supervision, and which was an awful lot of fun. We did a lot of the cleanup, but I would recommend that we consider, carefully how we go about the use of volunteers. And to Steve's comment, I don't know how we came up with a $75,000 number. And maybe there's some validity in what Steve says about, doing the work to the dollar amount. But I would think that, we would just demand more effort in knowing what is required to clean that project up. Maybe 75,000 would be enough, but I think that do we have to publish? Well, I guess we do have to let the vendors know what their maximum amount that we're going to pay.
Yes.
But they would just be the low bid that we would choose, right, as long as they're qualified. Right,
Good point.
so maybe with 100, we would get, more options to choose from. And they go with the lowest bidder who's qualified.
On Thursday, before Erin and Jessica Gray and Andrea Work were there, Brian and Dave Petrozelli and one of his neighbors walked it, and I walked it. And there is a lot of work to be done. I mean, you're just clearing and making it so that it can be used by the public. So,
I mean, we could do the same thing that we have done at Spanish River, like along the shoreline where the mangroves are. Once it's cleared out, like the bigger stuff, people can get in there and get the smaller things that are there, because there's a lot of trash that accumulates on that shoreline, a ton of little things. And that's what we did in Spanish River, me and my kids, picked up a ton of trash along that shoreline there. So, I mean, picking up trash and things like that is something that volunteers can do without, handling large equipment and things like that, which I think we should probably keep to contractors and stuff. But that might be an idea,
well, Mr. Rollins, are you making a motion for the increase?
Yes, ma'am, I just wonder, when we made the motion, we had to adjust our budget to add that in there. I don't know whether that's necessary to make a budget amendment or not, but Sam will have to let us know. But in either respect, I would like to make a motion that we expand the RFP to an amount of $100,000 for work to be performed at Ocean Strand.
Madam Chair, if I can quickly offer, but as you see the potential motion, a potential second, if the motion includes and embraces the opportunity to increase the budget to reflect the motion, then the motion should include both components. And I'm sure that was based on what you're.
And it's seconded.
Is there any further discussion? We haven't heard from you, Mr. Ernst.
Well, just a couple questions. Is it possible, we already have a budget approved for 75,000. So, it seems like that's and although small, change is small, I do in principle support the change for 100,000. Is it possible to have the RFP go out at 75,000 and then ask for additional options? You know, to be a little more flexible for one of them. The other question I had in here, that reviewed it twice, maybe I just overlooked it, but the RFP, where does it say the volunteer?
Oh, it's just in the scope, calls to artists, it says here, underneath scope of work in the paragraph, the district is open to utilizing local organizations, calls to artists and other creative community-based opportunities to create a unique natural park along A1A.
Okay, and I think that's terrific, because honestly, whether it's 75 or 100,000, I don't know about you folks, but I don't think that barely covers a major landscaping company to do all the work that's needed out. It is, there's a lot of work, so this is really dependent on community involvement to help drive it. So then the 75,000 or 100,000 is gonna cover some of the hard costs of maybe renting equipment. So truly to make this thing work, it's dependent on community volunteers. So let's go back. I think that works, the scope of work works fine. Supportive of the 100,000 number, but is it possible to leave it and just insert give us additional options without having to change our budget and then we can decide later?
We can write it in any way you want. Do you mean like additional, like price out each trash receptacle, price out each, because
No.
if they're designing it and bidding on the construction of it too. So their design will have to incorporate where they would put whatever new elements they add to.
Okay. Is it strictly going to be based on the lowest cost, or is it all the components?
Oh, all those things. You guys will have to review them all and decide which one. If you like a design that's better and it fits within our budget, that will be up to you guys. If I'm correct, Sam?
You are correct.
It's a design build, so it's a little bit different. We're not just bidding something that's already designed and the materials, it's a matter of materials and labor and the difference in prices there. This is accepting a design that you guys like as well.
So, one thing we could do as an option is you could leave the RFP the way it is, and it's instrumental to have some volunteer involvement. Okay, so that potentially volunteers they have insurance requirements. But could we add something that allows them to give us additional options for another 25,000, or 50,000?
We could.
That way you meet the requirement and it's just an optional thing, and we're not delaying the RFP any further. Not increasing the budget or changing the budget, I'm just trying to expedite things out.
Right. I think one of Commissioner Rollins' points was that I think we would entice more people if the budget were just spelled out clearly for everybody. And I don't know if that would help the number of prospective design / bidders that we get.
And if we gave it as an option, wouldn't we have to increase the budget anyway?
If you selected it.
You did.
Right.
It would seem to me that, give it more flexibility because it is a design build. And it's the one that we feel like will do the best job, the most qualified, and hopefully is doesn't necessarily have to be the least expensive, but we feel like your design is improved over others. And I like the fact that, intend to have the budget amendment in there, Sam, like that, so.
The motion would embrace a corresponding budget adjustment or budget amendment to support the motion, the main motion, which is in fact to fund it.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Gordon, if we go ahead and approve this, and we haven't even gotten a second yet, but if we do approve this, oh, did you, thank you, Aaron. If it gets approved, can we still go ahead and go forward with a motion for the RFP?
Yes,
Okay,
you get the ball rolling legally, you could, yes, operation.
is there any further discussion? Okay, let's vote on Mr. Rollins' motion to increase the budget for the RFP, and it was seconded by Mrs. Wright. Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes,
Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes.
very good. Now we need a motion to approve the RFP with the amended amount of money of $200,000.
I make a motion to approve the RFP with, the proviso that the allocation, goes up to $100,000.
We have a second.
Second.
Mr. Rollins, thank you. Any further discussion?
Just for the sake of clarification, we're approving the second version that was sent out this afternoon with the changes to the insurance indemnification and the change of times, correct?
As offered the record, yes.
Okay, Corinne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Alrighty. Commissioners, on page 34, somebody has
So
something?
we fill out motion strand or no? Yeah? Just one thing.
Okay.
I just wanna make sure that we're communicating on this to city council as well. I just wanna make sure that, we're letting them know that we're going ahead with the RFP, if they have any input, anything like that. I just think it would be a good thing for Brianne to keep them up to date on.
You must have been listening in on our phone conversation before the meeting, so yes, that will be part of her discussion at the workshop this week.
Okay,
We'll be putting that up.
Okay.
Anything else on Ocean Grid? Okay. Page 34, we have some of the budget discussions. We will be getting the budget from the city. Well, Brianne already has it. She will be distributing that this week. Brianne, would you like to start us off?
Yes, yes. So starting in your agenda packets on page 34, we start with a preliminary look at our budget, and we put these numbers together, Merv did, prior to getting the city's budgets. I do think it's worth looking at, and we can basically compare what we're gonna be looking at with the rollback rate and the current rate. It's about, the rollback rate would be 0.8856, just for reference, so you guys know where we're at. It's a difference of about $800,000 is what it boils down to. So at the end of the day, the amount of money that you have to put towards projects is gonna be between 7 million or 7.8 million. And we still have to plug in the city's final numbers, but I do feel like we're in a pretty good area to do that with these adjustments. I didn't get any feedback, or it didn't seem like there was any appetite to talk about any other tax rates, so before I go on, I just want to be clear, this is just a current rate or rollback rate that we're discussing and considering, because we do need to put in our tentative millage rate by the end of this month.
By the end
Yes.
of,
End of July, excuse me, yes. Fast forwarding time now.
Mr. Ernst, did you have something?
No, it's a correction, it's not due to the end of July.
Yes, sorry.
Correct.
Commissioner, do you have any questions for Brianne about any of these items?
We did have 100,000, as Commissioner Rollins stated earlier, set aside already in the budget. As you can see in this budget, we did not move any money to a line item for the golf course because that's something that would be a discussion as we move into the budget. But this was really just to see the difference between the current rate and the rollback rate based upon the property appraiser's values for next fiscal year.
And maybe by the next meeting, we will have a better idea of what the city's intentions are for the golf course design approval, and that would give us some direction.
Correct.
Steve?
Actually, I didn't have any question. I'm kind of happy to see that we're starting to build back our reserves. It was a concern of mine last year for the current fiscal year that we were a little skimpy. It seems to be coming back a little bit. Even after we allocate money for the golf course, there would still be several million in there in case of emergencies, whatnot. You know, I like to have a cushion.
Brianne, did you get an answer for Steve about the beach renourishment?
The beach renourishment is a two-sided topic, and I talked to Steve about it separately. There's obviously some pros and cons to all of it, and I do have the information. I can send it out in an email if we want to get into an in-depth convo, but it has a lot of economic benefits. It does do some detrimental things to the environment, but Florida's economy is really based on those beaches. And so the pros outweigh the cons at the end of the day for beach renourishment.
Commissioners, any further discussion about the budget that Brianne has prepared?
Yeah, just, this is great. A couple questions. One is the special interest revenues,
Yes.
was that, should that be reduced because of COVID and the months out? Or is it, obviously, we know we lost the carousel for, 3-4 months or longer.
We did lose the carousel. Yeah, some of these budgets were reduced slightly. We still will have a big bulk of the money comes from beach permit sales, which we will still have in the next fall, and we had this year because most of the permits were already sold by the time the beaches were closed. If the city decides to do something differently with that this year, we'd have to look at that. But there could be a significant decrease because there's no camp revenues, and that'll impact us more this year than hopefully next year.
Okay, but you have a rollover number assumption in there as for this year, so whatever's in there for this year, you're gonna end up short in 2019 actually.
For revenues, but a lot of that also that we get in revenues is spent back on programming. So some of that will.
So you'll have lower costs.
Right, right.
Okay, this is gonna be a tough budget year, and I would say that on interest earnings only, it's probably high. No one forecasted what was gonna happen. We have earned, in our, on interest earnings, $168,000 through May. And if you take the last month's earnings of $18,000 and multiply that out for 6, you're running about $300,000. So you're going to be. I'm concerned that we need to take a closer look line by line on some of these items to make sure we're not overextending ourselves, and we should err on the side of caution, significant caution this year as we take on projects. So as we take on these projects, my suggestion would be be careful of how we face them. And anything that we don't know, i.e. the city's capital plan on some of the larger ones, we have to be I know they're slower in the motion, methodical probably. We need to be extra careful.
Good point. At the next meeting when we discuss this in July, now that we have the city's numbers, we can plug in some of those numbers and get more conservative with these other numbers like the interest and the revenues and see where that takes us.
Okay. Just as a matter of discussion, is there anyone interested in anything other than the roadmap? I was early to say, in talking about our figures look like, what the ad valorem taxes, or the
once we see the city's budget, we can get a better handle on this and have a more determined discussion on, July sixth. We can study it and see where they're going.
Madam Chairman, I'd like to suggest too, I mean, last year, or maybe it was the previous year, we had kind of an abbreviated, budget summary. I'd like to make sure we have access to all the details like we had in the past. It makes the budget process more meaningful than having a summary of what the city's looking for.
Is that what we're getting, Brianne?
You're getting the binder, the full binder with all the information and the breakdown again of like the technical supervisory and other city staff that we fund as well.
Brianne, will you have any more feedback on the CRA status of?
Not by the next meeting, no. We have to set up a hearing for that with the city.
But we are gonna request, once you submit the paperwork, we will submit the request for it.
Yes, I just don't know that we will not have it by the end of July. We won't have a hearing set or know where they stand on that.
Okay. And then, where is the $5 million reserved for golf?
That was just a budget projection that we put together. We never adopted that formally, putting in $5 million. That was just a projection, so we left that in the reserves to decide how you wanted to allocate it next year. That part of that $7 million is that 5 that we had projected back in January.
And so, help me on finding that on this doc.
Towards the bottom, let's go back up. Balance, I'm sorry, at the very end, balance available is $7,028,000. This is on the rollback rate.
Oh, okay,
It's included in that,
Correct.
okay,
it's not a line item that's shown.
okay.
That was never officially adopted, so we're just looking at how we would move this budget around towards adoption.
Okay, and the $1.5 million of district capital improvement projects, that we yet to discuss?
Correct.
Okay.
Any thoughts or any questions for Brianne?
We will get those budget books out to you this week. We'll set up times. I know, Steve, you mentioned Wednesday, and some of you I know how I'll get them to you, others I'll work out, and we'll get them to you this week.
Okay, thank you, Brianne. The approval of payroll and invoices found on page 36 of your agenda packet, please.
Okay, Madam Chair, I request the approval for payroll and invoices of $1,138,000, $1,138,840.95.
Is this in the form of a motion, Mr. Ernst?
Yes.
Do I hear?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion, any questions? I do have a question about the FPL. Is there any way to reduce that $2,500 number over at on Second Avenue with the lodge?
There's really not much. We're not running much over there. There's not much that we can do. We were actually looking into getting the electric turned back on for the pump in the tunnel because we keep having to pay additional fees to have that pumped out individually. So we were looking at adding that on to the electric as well.
Okay, just asking.
I mean,
Any other discussion, commissioners? Hearing none, Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
For Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsett,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Okay. It's time for our reports and discussion items. Executive Director Parks, please.
Sure, I just want to remind each of you that financial disclosures are due July 1st. I think we know some of you have turned them in. If you haven't, that's all due. We sent out, this afternoon, or this morning, this day is running together, I sent out the RFP that we put together for the Boca National, the three corners. And I know I've heard from Commissioner Rollins. If anybody else has any feedback that you want to get to me in the next week or two, we're going to have that on the agenda for the next meeting to discuss and approve. So I'd like to move that one forward. Also, I want to look at adding, I know we're not talking about future agenda items, but for the sake of it, I'd like to start talking about the employee policies that Jacob mentioned last week, which was the non-interference policy, as well as an employee evaluation policy for next agenda.
Okay. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. District Council, Mr. Gorin.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Commissioners, good evening, welcome to Monday evening. Couple things if I may. Governor DeSantis issued Executive Order number 20-139 on June 3rd, effective on June 5th, and what it did, among other things, it provides in Section 6 the following. It says previous Executive Order extended. Executive Order 20-69 is extended until June 30, 2020. What is that order? 20-69 is the basis on which we're now in this virtual session tonight, having a virtual forum, which is legally allowed to be conducted based upon the governor's order. Under this revision of 20-139, the governor has the ability under this provision to essentially end virtual forums as of June 30th. To the extent that some local government bodies, such as yourselves, whether it be districts or counties or cities, are considering and are taking action to request that their legal counsel make formal request to Tallahassee to have the governor potentially consider extending beyond June 30th the virtual meeting, virtual forum concept for several very important reasons. For example, in Broward, we're not in the second phase yet. In Palm Beach, I'm not sure where you are exactly, but we're sort of in phase 2 or thereabouts. And the problem is the limitation on how many people can be sitting in a room, for example. There may also be, and it's not said to be discriminatory, but there are some members of the board that are certain maturation, as it were, that they're more affected by the coronavirus than others, or potentially do. I didn't use the word age, I used the word maturation, including myself, as a matter of fact. Having said that, in a more positive, upbeat way, I would ask that you consider this evening to either direct me to make a request to the governor to extend beyond June 30th, or to leave it alone, or something in between. But I do want to bring it to your attention because the next meeting, which could occur after June 30th, theoretically, could be a physical in-person meeting, which would not be guided by any of the regulations that we've adopted in connection with the virtual forum. So I raise it with you. I must confess to you that some of our public officials love it to death. They think it's very appropriate and it's worked very well, very seamless, and people have become very used to the process, which I think has been the case here. Or they prefer to have the live meetings again. And to that extent, I think that there will ultimately be live meetings. But to the extent that the governor's order will expire, I want to do is bring it to your attention this evening and have you please think about what you'd like me to do as your counsel on your behalf. I'm happy to try to do anything you think appropriate. I've already sent letters this past week to 2 of our cities that have specifically asked for extensions beyond June 30th. So,
Commissioners, would you like to weigh in on this? Personally, being over 70 and compromised in a couple of different ways, I would like to see it extended for the virtual meetings, but I'll go along with whatever you all would like to do.
I would like to see them extended. I think they're working very well, and it affords those of us of a certain maturation a little bit of comfort and a little bit of protection. Based on the fact that the community centers are not open, we're kind of restricted as to what alternatives we can pursue. And I think for our purposes now, until the community centers reopen, I think this is probably the best path to pursue.
Yeah, I agree. I would, we're at slightly more risk just because Steve is on shift every 4th day with the fire department, making calls with lots of people. So I would hate for us to transmit anything to any one of you, me. So if it works, I say we extend it.
Mr. Rollins?
Sam, in this extension, how long, what was the length of time that the other municipalities were asking for virtual meetings to be extended?
I don't recall what the asked for a specific time, but in light of the increase in coronavirus incidences in Southeast Florida in recent days, and in light of the fact that there are other componentry involved with regard to having a physical meeting, is that the door open as to the when part? I think this governor actually, given what I've read thus far, would be amenable to extending it to a reasonable time, but without giving him a deadline, perhaps something that would be open and to discretion with him might give us some help. For example, if I may, Commissioner, in one of the orders, it actually was in place until otherwise revoked, which gave him the discretion to keep it. So, without giving it a time certain, I think we should make that request reasonably, rationally, in a measured way that would not seem to be offensive or officious. I'm thinking that it had to be like, a year from next June or something. It would not be offensive.
Thank you, Sam. I would support extending it, with the proviso that when it comes down to the public hearings on our budget, I think we do need to do that where the public can attend in person, and this can be done safely.
Good point.
Would we still allow the dial-in option for the public after we're meeting in
You
public?
could add, if I may, Madam Chair, there may be some, at some point, we have a kind of bifurcated virtual meeting where, theoretically, you could have some, if the virtual meeting, or virtual forum concept were validated or revalidated by the governor, that would mean that not all of you would have to be in the same room at the same time. And if it be your wish to allow the public to come into a public session with some of you not physically present, that could be an option. But there are options that you actually do meet physically and leave the door open for the public to come in, which could happen. I don't know the answer. I know that we can't predict what's going to be the case come public hearings in September, but we're several months away, and there's no definitive answer yet for that question. So a motion.
Motion to direct you to, draft this letter.
Yes, ma'am, I appreciate that very much, thank you.
Okay, could I get a motion, please?
Yes, I move that we direct our attorney to, compose a letter to the governor asking for an extension on, the ability to have, virtual forums.
And could I get a second, please?
Second.
Mr. Rowland, is that you?
Yeah, that's correct.
Okay, great, thank you.
We're both on the same.
Is there any further discussion? Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
For Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes?
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
Commissioner Wright.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Commissioners. One more item, if you will, Madam Chair.
Right?
On June the 8th, we received an Attorney General's opinion, which we forwarded to you some number of hours after we received it, which I'm sure you've all seen by now. What's interesting about the opinion from the AG's office is it is what is referred to globally as an informal opinion. We actually asked for a number of opinions. They're pretty far behind Tallahassee, and quite frankly, when we called up there, our request was sent out in February. I've got one pending since last November for Pembroke Pines, has not been responded to yet, just FYI. But the key factor is that we do have an opinion, albeit informal, but albeit also persuasive. And essentially what the AG's office has done is they've analyzed, and by the way, we were the guinea pig, you don't know this, but we were, after we submitted the request, we got a whole questionnaire from Tallahassee, which we'd never seen before. One of which was to have your lawyer confirm that you actually asked this question. And that you actually had minutes to reflect why you asked the question, what the premise was, which we then supported with the minutes and the background information. I suspect there's been instances over time where lawyers have made requests for aging opinions in the press that have not told the complete truth about how they got there. So we had all the basis for asking for the request, which included our memorandum of law, which they also asked for, by the way, our request, our exchange with the board, etc. So to make a long story short, the AG has concluded, as you have read it, that unless the special act is amended to provide otherwise, the district may not sell, lease, or otherwise convey real property it owns. And based upon the foregoing, Greater Boca Raton Beach and Park District does not have the legal authority to sell, lease, or otherwise convey real property owned by the district. And the end result of that is that the declaration, which you approved in recent meetings regarding Ocean Strand, is a classic example of where you will be on the record publicly certifying that the property will not be sold in the future, which is compatible with and consistent with this AG's opinion. And by the way, parenthetically, thank you for the last week's approval to allow engaging Steve Watts from Calvin Giordano essentially to do a certified legal description of the property. I'm not a surveyor, you all not a surveyor, which is a good thing, but it's not an in-the-ground survey, but it will be essentially just a certified surveyor certificate that will provide for the sketch and legal reportable along with the declaration, which has already been signed, declaring the property to be not saleable to the extent possible. And this opinion bolsters the fact that in a special act and in a special district, whatever the authority is that you were given is the specific authority that you were given. There's no significant implied authority, it is what you get. So for example, in some years, recent years, when I was counsel for Broward Health, for example, they were also a special district, they're a public taxing board. The city of Coral Springs was going to, in fact they had a fire assessment against the district, and we recommended against paying it, even though we represent cities that collect it just like that, but we believe that under the special act, they didn't have the authority to pay it. The city sued the district won the case at trial level, and the appellate court also concluded that absent a specific provision in the special act authorizing payment for fire rescue assessments, they couldn't make the payment. Correspondingly, in this situation, absent specific language in the document in our special act, last codified in 2003, the district does not have the authority to make that decision. I think it's also thoughtful, I know that Commissioner Ernst raised this issue, we had a brief exchange on the record about it, that be mindful that if you go back to the legislature and ask for something else or something different, you expose yourself to a potential situation that you don't get to control. In regard to making the agency's request, we knew full well going into the conversation that there would be either an answer in favor of the request or not. And there's no current interest in going back to the legislature and asking for authority or a different kind of authority under the current special act. Having said that, I'm sure you'll enjoy reading it. It is now a public record. It was published as of June the 8th. It was signed by the Senior Assistant Attorney General, Teresa Museto, and now stands for the proposition that the limitations of the special act, which you will follow as a matter of law since the beginning. And that's just my update for the evening on that subject.
Thank you, Mr. Gorham.
Yes, ma'am. Happy to answer any questions, and thank you for allowing us to make the request as we did, and thank you for the authority last week to do the special certified legal for the Ocean Spring property. We appreciate it.
Do you have any questions for Mr. Gorham on either of these subjects? Okay, we'll move into Commissioner's report. Mrs. Wright, would you like to start us off?
Or, you're gonna let the public ask questions again, too, after we do our.
After we're finished, if
Okay.
it's the pleasure of the board, yes, I would like to do that.
Okay, and I just wanted to say thank you to Mr. Chaffee for that comment on the, like the walking, running path at the golf course. I think that's a great idea for early in the morning and later, like in the evening time. I think that's maybe how we can get that to work. Having that running trail, walking trail around the golf course, and then just, I guess the word would be policing it to make sure nobody's using it during golf times. But I think that's a great idea, so thank you, Carol, for that. And, no, I didn't have anything else as of right now.
Great, thank you. Craig, would you like to start or come in second here?
No, Madam Chair, I have no comments, thank you.
Okay, Steve?
A couple of things. With the budget coming up and an end of July deadline to have a rate in place, I thought it might be a good idea to schedule our July meetings in addition to the 6th and the 20th. Excuse me. I know that there are vacations coming up, and I wanted to get the opportunity to get in front of this so that we could take into consideration any situations that we need to account for.
Okay. Are you
I
ready?
totally forgot to mention that I'm not here on the 20th as well. So thank you for bringing that up.
So you're asking for a special meeting. Brianne, look at your calendar. What does the 27th look like, and do we have council available for that date?
Are you asking Aaron to move, Commissioner Wright, are you asking to move the 20th to another date? Are you looking to?
No, I mean, if I have to miss it, I have to miss it. I don't want to screw anybody else's calendar.
Okay, well, it's a tentative, setting a tentative millage rate, and the first public hearing is what we have to do by the end of July. we won't be setting the entire budget.
We are going from the 16th to the 26th.
So the 27th would work perfectly for me.
I'll study everything over vacation. I think that happened last year and the year before too.
It did.
Yeah.
Mr. Rollins, is the 27th good for you too?
That's in addition to the 6th and the 20th.
Yes, sir.
I'm available for that.
Okay, Mr. Ernst?
Yes, I'm available.
Okay.
So Brianna, are you saying we have to move the 20th meeting because it's a tentative military setting or no?
We do not have to move it, I just didn't know if that's what you were looking to do.
No, I mean, I can get on the phone, I guess, if you need me to.
It's still legally possible, by the way, yes. Even if the governor eliminates, and I'm sure eliminates virtual forums, if you have a physical forum in the room and the commissioner's not available, she can dial in, that's still legally available.
Okay.
Under your current.
That would be great if you're available, Aaron.
Okay.
Do you-
How,
Are we setting a tentative?
My summer vacation. I have, well, two other things, very brief. One, Brianne.
Yes?
Have you been able to talk to the city about scheduling a joint meeting at some point?
I haven't heard back about a date. I am gonna go to the workshop next week and I have several things on my list. I can certainly add that to the list. Their schedule is very short for the summer. They're only meeting one time in July and August, so it will be after that.
Okay. And last but not least, some of our constituents have made known to me a desire for us to revisit pickleball at Ocean Breeze or the future Boca National. So when we talk about the options, beautification options, maybe we could revisit the pickleball center.
Okay.
I thought we were gonna put that in the RFP. I didn't have a chance to read that RFP today, but I thought that was gonna be an option in the RFP.
That's-
More of the
We can,
courts.
okay, we can flesh that out in the RFP.
All right, that's it.
okay, Mr. Rollins?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. First of all, I'd like to congratulate Commissioner Ernst on a hard-won campaign.
Did we put that in the second?
Congratulate, I'm greatly look forward to working with you and to Steve and Aaron. My best wishes and efforts I put forth to help you guys. I love working with you. I've enjoyed the relationship and it's been a real pleasure. So let's keep the trend going if we can. And you certainly know that my support is with you guys. It may not be proper protocol in a meeting of this nature, but I just wanted you to know that I've enjoyed working with you, Craig, and Aaron. It's been a real pleasure. The only question I have, Madam Chairman, when we're asking things of the city, there's elephant in the room with as far as developing the east side of a national. It's the Jeffrey Street corridor. And, I've heard all sorts of comments about, they'll never get approval for closing or the city abandoning that right of way. But I think we just need to keep that front and center because, that bifurcating our property could be the difference in our development plans over there. So I think that we need to stay on that. I don't know what the latest is as far as the ability to cross the city, to actually cross over the two lines that are over there, Bright Line and the Seacoast Railroad. But it just seemed to me to be some intersections would have to be closed in order to accommodate another one. And I think we need to stay on top of that because I know there's I'm seriously interested in not having that go through our golf course, and I don't know whether there's been any traffic studies by the city that would indicate their thought process, but I need to have something more specific about that as we move forward with our development, and hopefully we'll get some kind of answers from them on the design so we can have that available when we start with our budget. that's all. Thank you very much, for the opportunity to weigh in.
Thank you, Mr. Rollins. Should we direct council to inquire with the FEC as far as the ability to have a crossover at that point? I know I have reached out to them and gotten an opinion that it's not going to happen, but apparently the city has heard other things.
Didn't we get a letter? I remember reading something that said, it was last year, wasn't it?
It absolutely was, and the gentleman's name was Robert. I don't remember his last name. I have to go back in my records, but he said that it's just not likely to happen. So,
I'd just like to stay on top of it to keep the issue front and center, because that really would be a concern on us when we start developing the course itself. And like you said, Gary mentioned, I do recall a letter, I think it's from the traffic engineer, was made that statement that it's unlikely that this would be approved. And I don't know, if there's something else that we go to that gives a more definitive answer, but the city seems interested in holding on to it unless there's some person that clearly says Seacoast Railroad and Brightline are not going to allow another crossing.
would you like for council to look into that, Mr. Rollins?
If it pleasures the board, I would certainly be interested in knowing the efforts of their research.
Mr. Gorin, do you need a motion to
I
direct?
would like that with one caveat, whatever correspondence, I recall you had correspondence about a year or so ago, if you share that with us, the motion is adopted, we can then use it to kind of have that conversation with the council, which I think will be something direct and hopefully helpful to our cause.
We actually provided that back to the city,
I recall.
So do I hear a motion to direct council to look into the crossover on Jeffrey Street?
Madam Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we request council to look into prospects of the abandonment of the right of way and the prospects of whether or not a road would actually go across those two routes.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Engel. Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. Joanne, would you do a roll call vote, please?
Sure. Commissioner Ernst,
Yes.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsang,
Yes.
Commissioner Wynn.
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for the direction, I appreciate that very much.
Thank you. Anything else, Mr. Rollins?
No, thank you, ma'am. I'm finished.
I have nothing except to wish all of our fathers on our board and our council, and our absent council, a very happy Mother's Day. And, at this point, if it pleases the commission, I'd like to revisit public requests, if it's all right with everybody. Brianna, do you have anybody that looks like they're raising their
It
hand?
looks like Mr. Chaffee is here again.
Okay,
Yeah, you should actually, since you own the property on both sides of that paper street, you could put a request into the city to, are you gonna do it or not?
that's an interesting suggestion, thank you.
Because I own property on both sides of a paper street one time, and I had to put, because I owned on both sides, I could put a request in for that paper street to be vacated. And they did vacate it. It's only a suggestion.
That's a good suggestion. Let's see what council comes up with as far as the ability, and then we can go from there. But we will keep that in the queue.
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else?
Just as a reminder, it's *9 on your phones if you do want to raise your hand to speak. Scroll down, I do not see any hands raised.
Okay. The second public requests are now closed. The future agenda items, Brianne, the RFP for the golf course beautification, and we should have an answer about else that you'd like to put on the agenda? I guess not. Mr. Engel,
I move to adjourn.
wait here a second.
Second.
Okay. Joanne, roll call vote, please.
For Commissioner Ernst,
Yeah.
Commissioner Engel,
Yes.
Commissioner Rollins,
Yes.
Commissioner Vogelsong,
Yes.
Commissioner Rea.
Yes.
Take care, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you, sir.